My ex-wife begged me not to marry my fiancé, but my fiancé wants everyone to see her letter. I want to start by saying that the past few months have been some of the most emotionally draining yet eye-opening times of my life. Even as I write this, my heart is racing, my mind swirling with memories, anxieties, and cautious hope for the future. I never anticipated that my life would unfold this way, caught between my ex-wife, who once was the epicenter of my universe, and my fiancé, who now holds my heart in ways I never thought possible after the divorce. I never thought I'd be in a position where I have to decide whether or not to share a personal, desperate email with the entire world. But here I am. It all began in college. I met Lily when we were both about 20, aspiring law students and full of grand dreams. We discovered we were preparing for the LSAT at the same time, which naturally led us to form a study group and, eventually, a deeper connection. Late-night sessions meant we'd inevitably talk about more than just legal logic and sample questions. I learned that Lily came from modest means, that she was driven by a desire to help people and to find security for herself. She learned that my parents had always been my heroes, working hard to give me the best possible start in life. We connected over shared values, late-night library runs, and the raw excitement of building a future that we believed could be remarkable. That connection turned into a relationship, and we both wound up in the same law school. It felt fated, in a way. Lily and I would stay up into the early hours discussing hypothetical legal cases, our own personal struggles with imposter syndrome, and the massive readings assigned each week. It was intense, but somehow having each other made law school feel more like an adventure than a burden. After graduating and passing the bar, we both landed positions at prestigious firms, riding the wave of each other's success. Within 6 months, I proposed. It wasn't flashy, but it was heartfelt. A year later, at the age of 25, we were married. The wedding day was like a dream. Family, close friends, a small chapel on a fall afternoon. My mother wept tears of joy. Lily's father, a normally stoic man, was overcome with emotion. We felt like we were on top of the world, set to conquer everything life could throw at us. With no children and a single-minded focus on our careers, we jumped headfirst into the grueling life of first-year law associates. The work was brutal, the hours demanded, but we believed it was a small price to pay for the bright future we'd have. Over the next 2 years, though, subtle cracks started forming. We worked 60-hour weeks, often more. Instead of sharing long conversations over dinner, we'd come home exhausted, sometimes barely speaking beyond a quick, "How was your day?" Lily hinted that she missed the excitement of being young and carefree. She watched some of her single friends travel, date casually, and explore the world without strings attached. We'd gotten married so early that she wondered if she'd missed out on something essential. I tried to reassure her that once we were settled in our careers, we'd have time for travel, spontaneity, and adventure. But the treadmill never seemed to stop, and we kept running. 4 years into the marriage, 6 years ago, Lily finally voiced what she'd been feeling all along. She told me she was unhappy and felt suffocated by a life that left little time for her to explore who she was without me. She had never lived alone, never navigated adulthood independently. It wasn't that I'd done anything objectively wrong, but she wanted to understand herself outside the context of us. I was shell-shocked. But as she spoke, parts of me recognized that those unspoken resentments had been festering for a long time. We had taken on so much, academia, bar exams, demanding careers, and we'd never paused to figure out who we were as individuals. I begged her to try counseling or at least take a prolonged break instead of a divorce, but Lily was resolute. It wasn't anger that drove her. It was more like a quiet desperation. She needed to step away, to find independence. The divorce was amicable in a legal sense. We had no significant assets, no children, and we made roughly the same amount of money. The legal aspect was simple. The emotional aspect, however, was a nightmare for both of us. In the immediate aftermath, we stayed in periodic contact. It was too big a shift, from living like extensions of each other to going our separate ways, for us to just cut ties overnight. Unfortunately, Lily spiraled into depression and panic attacks. I'd get phone calls at odd hours, hearing her sob about how lonely it was in the condo without me. She started therapy and was eventually diagnosed with BPD, borderline personality disorder, which explained so much of the emotional turbulence she'd been experiencing. I felt deep concern for her. We had shared so many years. I cared for her well-being even though we were no longer married. I tried to help where I could, driving her to therapy sometimes, shopping with her, making sure she wasn't completely alone in those first months. However, over the course of that year following our divorce, Lily started hinting at the possibility of reconciling. She'd ask me if we could date again, if we could pick up where we'd left off but do it right this time. By that point, my heart had moved on. I still cared for her as a person, but I no longer had the desire to be in a romantic relationship with her. I'd come to terms with the hurt she'd caused me, and more importantly, the hurt we'd caused each other by ignoring signs that we wanted different lives. We drifted into a sort of neutral friendship, though it was obvious she still had lingering attachments that I no longer reciprocated. Eventually, I found a way to move forward, which started with me joining a local running club to clear my head and build a new social circle. That's where I met Mila, a bright, energetic woman 7 years younger than me. Mila was in grad school, pursuing a master's in public health. She had a zest for life that was contagious. From the moment I met her, something clicked. We'd go on runs, talk about everything from her classes to my legal battles, and then keep the conversation going over coffee afterwards. Before long, we started dating. It felt right, simple, easy, unburdened by old baggage. I told Mila about my friendship with Lily early on, explaining that I was my ex-wife's part-time confidant, mainly because Lily was still dealing with her mental health challenges. Mila tried to be understanding, but as our relationship grew more serious, she expressed discomfort with the depth of my involvement in Lily's life. She felt it was time for Lily and me to have clearer boundaries. I took her concerns to heart and made the decision to limit contact with Lily. No more daily texts, no more late-night phone calls whenever she had an anxiety attack. It was tough, but I believed it was the healthy step forward for everyone involved. Lily reluctantly agreed, though it was obvious she saw it as a painful rejection. We settled into a new status quo where we'd only see each other in group social situations, such as mutual friends' parties or weddings. 3 years passed in my relationship with Mila, and I was happier than I'd ever been. We complemented each other in so many ways. She brought energy to my life, making me appreciate all the little joys I had overlooked for years. I proposed to her during a summer trip to visit her parents, in a moment filled with laughter and tears of joy. We'd planned our wedding for the following September, with my parents thrilled at the news and her parents welcoming me wholeheartedly into the family. It felt like the future was bright and unencumbered. Then I received the email from Lily, an email I never expected and never wanted. It arrived in my inbox about a week ago, and its contents left me and Mila reeling. Lily poured her heart out, pleading with me not to marry me. She wrote about how she had realized we were soulmates, that she believed I was only dating Mila to punish her, and that she had learned her lesson. She begged me to return to her side, invoking our old wedding vows and accusing me of abandoning her in her sickness. She claimed my new vows with Mila would be meaningless since I'd promised those things to Lily first. Reading her words felt surreal, as if she'd constructed a fantasy world in her head where I was still hers. It disturbed me, not just for the emotional manipulations she was attempting, but because it reflected a deep lack of awareness about how much time had passed and how much had changed. My immediate reaction was to show Mila, to assure her that I was 100% on her side, and that I wouldn't tolerate Lily crossing that line. Mila was understandably furious. She felt Lily was trying to sabotage our wedding, and that this act deserved some form of public shaming or retribution. Mila wanted to share the email on Instagram or Facebook, tagging our mutual friends so that everyone would see the extremes Lily had gone to. She hoped this would convince people to cut Lily off and permanently remove her from our social circles. My parents supported Mila, feeling that Lily was a threat to my happiness and no longer deserved any leniency. There was a real sense of, she needs to face the consequences of her actions. But I was hesitant. Maybe it was my instincts as a lawyer telling me that airing private grievances publicly seldom leads to a good resolution. Maybe it was my lingering empathy for Lily, given her BPD and ongoing mental health issues. I believed that broadcasting her letter to the entire world would only fuel more drama and potentially push her into a deeper depressive spiral. In my view, we had done enough by blocking her on every channel, and we could even avoid her at social events if necessary. Public humiliation felt cruel and unnecessary. Mila and I argued about it. She said I was too calm, too forgiving, that if the roles were reversed, she'd be raging at my ex, insisting on scorched earth. She also admitted she felt threatened, that the letter demonstrated Lily's willingness to do anything to break us up, and she feared some big stunt might happen at our wedding. I tried to reassure her, explaining that in my mind, Lily had become a distant stranger. Yes, she'd been important to me once, but I no longer wanted or needed her in my life. I wasn't giving Lily a pass. I just didn't see the value in dwelling on her actions or making a spectacle out of her. Eventually, Mila acknowledged that perhaps sharing the letter publicly was more about her anger than about resolving anything. She told me my mother was the one really pushing for it. My mother had never forgiven Lily for walking away from me years back. When Mila first threatened to post it on social media, part of her intention was to placate my mother's fury. But deep down, Mila realized it would just stoke the fire and possibly invite more chaos. Still, we agreed we needed to protect ourselves. Mila confessed she was having nightmares about Lily popping up at the wedding and causing a scene. To get more clarity, I decided to reach out to some of our mutual friends, the ones who also had close contact with Lily. They told me Lily's mental health had taken a downturn in recent months. Ever since our engagement announcement, she'd been calling them in the midst of BPD episodes, spinning wild theories about how I was only with Mila to punish her. She'd say she had paid her dues and that now I should return to her side, as if our breakup was just a temporary penance. My friends found it alarming. They also revealed that Lily had been stalking Mila's social media from fake accounts, obsessively tracking her posts. Though they didn't want to violate Lily's privacy, they had tried to dissuade her from contact. Yet it seemed she couldn't stop herself, and that email became the breaking point for us. I realized how serious this could get, so Mila and I decided to draft a final response, making it absolutely clear that I wanted no further contact. We composed the email carefully, balancing firmness with compassion. I stated that while I understood the news of my engagement was difficult for her, I had firmly moved on. I wished her peace and reminded her she had support systems in place, like therapy and family, but that this was the last message she would receive from me. We blocked her on all platforms, determined to protect our future. After sending the email, we turned our attention back to wedding preparations. Though we agreed to hire security to ensure Lily couldn't crash the ceremony, it felt like an extreme measure, but the uncertainty of her mental state demanded caution. A strange calm settled over us once we sent that letter. Mila seemed relieved that we'd addressed it head-on. I also felt a sense of closure. I had forgiven Lily for the pain from years ago, but it was time to step fully into my life with Mila. I felt sorry for Lily, in the sense that it's tragic to see someone you once loved so deeply still unable to move on. Yet I realized I couldn't fix her life. I could only live my own. Our wedding day arrived under a bright September sky. The venue was a cozy winery, with rows of grapevines rolling over gentle hills. We had an intimate ceremony. My family and Mila's family sat in the front rows, both sets of parents beaming. As soon as Mila appeared at the end of the aisle, wearing a simple, elegant dress that highlighted her natural beauty, I felt tears pricking my eyes. All the anxiety about Lily fell away. This was our moment, and it was perfect. We exchanged vows full of love and gratitude. When I looked at Mila, I knew I had found a partner who matched my heart and respected my journey. Our first kiss as husband and wife brought cheers and applause, and the reception was all laughter and celebration. Friends gave heartfelt toasts, referencing the brightness of our future and the happiness we brought each other. My mother, who had been so enraged at Lily, was simply overjoyed that day, enveloping Mila in warm embraces and welcoming her wholeheartedly into our family. Throughout the evening, our hired security kept a quiet watch, but Lily never showed. There were no dramatic surprises. We breathed a collective sigh of relief once we realized we'd made it through the ceremony without incident. People danced, sipped wine, and shared stories until the sun went down. When we finally left the venue, hand in hand as newlyweds, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace and closure. In the weeks that followed, I learned from mutual friends that Lily had taken a leave of absence from her firm and checked into an intensive therapy program out of state with her mother's support. My emotions were mixed. There was relief that she was seeking more focused treatment and a lingering sadness that it had come to this. I didn't wish Lily any harm. I hoped she would find stability and healing. But I also knew I had to maintain no contact for the sake of my new marriage and my own well-being. With time, the intensity of everything that happened faded. Mila and I fell into the rhythms of married life, planning weekend getaways, merging finances, and discussing future goals. We sent out thank you cards for wedding gifts, and we set aside a special album of wedding photos that captured our joy. Sometimes, I'd catch Mila looking over her shoulder when she posted something on social media, concerned about Lily's fake accounts. But as months passed and we heard nothing new from Lily, our tensions eased. I never did share the email public. My fiancé, now wife, chose not to go down that path. We decided together that it would have been vindictive without offering us any real benefit. We'd already distanced ourselves from Lily, and those who needed to know the details were already in. Posting it on social media might have brought Lily more shame than help, possibly exacerbating her mental health crisis. We had no desire to inflict further damage, so we kept the letter private, letting only our closest friends and family see the proof if they asked. Looking back, I think the experience taught me important lessons about boundaries and compassion. Sometimes, caring for someone means recognizing when you can't save them, when you must let them face their own life choices. Lily and I had been married. We'd built a life together and seen each other's best and worst moments. But once it was truly over, it was over. I don't owe her the destruction of my own happiness just because we share a complicated past. She, in turn, has the responsibility to manage her illness and respect that I have moved on. Our wedding vows were sacred at the time, but those promises ended when our marriage ended. Now, the promises I've made belong to Mila, and they are promises of a future forged by a new start, not by punishing the ghosts of the past. I hope Lily's therapy leads her to healthier relationships and helps her find peace with our divorce. Mental illness isn't an excuse for bad behavior, but it does add layers that many of us can't easily understand. It's possible to simultaneously hold someone accountable for crossing lines and still wish them the best in their recovery. That's how I feel about Lily. I don't want her near me or my wife, but I do hope she finds the path toward a fulfilling life, one where she no longer clings to the idea of us. My wife, after all the anger and hurt, has also come to a place of understanding. She no longer seeks vengeance. She just wants to live free from the fear of interference. In the end, the decision not to share that email publicly was a testament to the life we want to build, a life not defined by spectacle or revenge, but by mutual respect, healthy boundaries, and calm resolve. Our wedding went smoothly, and we began our marriage without the shadow of a social media feud. That, to me, was the best outcome. And so, we closed the chapter on a complicated past and turned toward a future bright with promise, knowing that real love doesn't require constant battles for public opinion, but rather private dedication to understanding, respect, and genuine devotion.